Okay.
May I have
This
one
is,
brief moment before we get started? I'm sorry.
How brief a moment?
2 minutes max.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
Okay, your meter's running.
I'm back.
Okay. That's pretty good. It's about 2 minutes. All right. Okay, I'm just reading the motion. The issue is basically the stop, right?
Well, not just the stop, Your Honor. As the exhibits say, the warrant on its face is defective. There's some discrepancies with the information regarding the date of the incident and the reports supporting the warrant that was ultimately the basis for charging Mr. White.
Would the date be amendable in the sense of with the charge?
The warrant, the warrant for the blood draw is defective, Your Honor. According to the warrant, it was issued in January of 2020. The affidavit attached to it is dated August of 2020, and this incident allegedly happened in June of 2020.
All right, well, Mr. Curry, you're on.
Oh, this is my very first one, Judge. And
Okay.
actually, this is going to be a question, Judge, but when the affidavit supporting the blood draw was submitted, the wrong date was filed. Is there some sort of harmless error analysis that goes into that? Can that be
I'd have to see the I've seen these before, but I don't remember the case on point.
Because other than that, I can ask Michael or Officer Edge.
There's a champion, people versus champion cited. And then I see there's also reference to administrative rule administrative rule violation also. And then whether or not the stop itself is a probable cause stop and whether or not about the blood draw. So why don't we start with the stop, okay?
Okay, yes, Judge.
I see Officer Edge, who was the arresting officer. Is that correct, Mr. Edge?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, so you're, okay, so I would probably ask any witnesses, Mr. Edge, if you are going to testify I guess we can do this by Zoom. You solemnly swear that testimony will be given in the matter now and hearing the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
May I proceed, Judge? Thank you.
Sure, please.
Officer Edge, would you please state your name for the wow? Would you please state your name for the record?
Officer Michael Edge,
And Officer Edge, where are you employed?
Van Buren Township.
How long have you been there?
Approximately just over 2 years.
And I would like to direct your attention to June the 15th of 2020. Were you employed that day?
Yes,
In what capacity?
police officer.
And did your duties as a police officer take you to the southbound I-94 service drive in Belleville?
Yes,
Is that in Van Buren Township?
Van Buren Township. Yes.
And officer, what was your reason for being at that location?
We had a police or someone called 911 stating there was a intoxicated driver leaving the Bellbridge Apartments, which was located on the North Service Drive near Haggerty Road, stating they were driving towards Village Green, which would have been westbound from that location across Belleville Road on the South Service Drive.
And did you eventually arrive at that location?
Negative. Nope.
What was the reason for not arriving?
Dispatch advised that the intoxicated driver was driving a black Silverado. I observed a black Silverado traveling westbound from the Bellbridge Apartments, traveling in the direction of Village Green.
And upon that observation, Officer Edge, what'd you do next?
I turned my vehicle around and proceeded to follow the vehicle westbound towards Belleville Road.
And were you watching the vehicle at that time?
Yes, I was 2 vehicles behind it.
What did you notice about the vehicle?
It was just driving westbound.
Just driving westbound?
Yep.
And did you eventually effectuate a traffic stop, Officer Edge?
Yes.
And did you eventually make contact with the driver?
Yes.
Question, at what point, what were your observations prior to the stop?
I'm assuming you're talking about the reason for the traffic stop.
Yes.
I had another, my sergeant was traveling eastbound. He saw the vehicle driving westbound and observed that it failed to maintain its lane by crossing the white fog line. And he read that.
That was,
I'm sorry.
this is a report from another officer. Is that correct?
No, this is my my report. My sergeant wrote a supplemental report stating his observations and how he relayed that over the radio to me prior to me effecting the traffic stop. So my sergeant observed the infraction of failing to maintain the lane, and I effected the traffic stop.
Okay.
And the date should have been August 15th of 2020.
Oh, that's the correct date?
Yeah, my report states that it was August 15th of 2020.
Okay. All right.
I don't know where the June date or the January date came from.
All right, so this was in August 15th of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, not June 15th. Thank you. That's for the
I
record.
don't know if the 6 looks like an 8 in your paperwork or
Happens to the best of us.
Typo.
And officer, well, I guess I have no further questions about the stop. So no further questions, Your Honor.
Questions? Ms.
Yes.
Woodson?
Officer Edge, did you observe Mr. White driving in a manner that warranted a traffic stop?
I did not. My sergeant relayed the information to me.
So you just saw, as you stated earlier, you just saw him driving westbound, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more. You received a 911 call about the intoxicated driver,
Yes, ma'am.
and in that call, the woman stated at least 3 times that Mr. White was there visiting another female, correct?
I do not recall if that was relayed to me.
And she also stated that she was an ex-girlfriend of Mr. White.
I can't recall if that was relayed to me or not.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Curry, anything?
I have nothing further, Judge.
Okay, let's go back. I have some questions regarding the, and again, I'm recalling things. I don't have the case law in front of me. But as I recall, a police officer may make a stop based upon what is related to him. In other words, a misdemeanor was committed in the present, possible, let's say violation, not necessarily misdemeanor, was committed in the presence of another officer. And he, Mr. Edge, was dispatched to make the stop. Now, my question of Ms. Woodson is, you have case law to the contrary, that in other words, in your opinion, would support the non-aspects of the stop, in other words, a non-probable cause. And secondly, you have, there's some issue about a preliminary examination, which contrary administrative regulation, in other words, a APA, was there anything, in what way was it in violation?
You're talking to me, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, I understand that this case law regarding an officer may relate information about another crime committed, whether it be a misdemeanor or felony. However, in this instance, this is a civil infraction that was related to Officer Edge. Officer Edge was investigating a possible operating while intoxicated. The information related to him, a lane change, or as the video, when Mr. White made a left turn, he didn't immediately get into the lane that he was turning into, like a 2-second delay. That's a civil infraction, which is a ticketable offense. That's not a misdemeanor. And Officer Edge himself did not observe that ticketable offense or that civil infraction. Officer Edge did in fact observe that and pulled him over, and then from that, the subsequent investigation took place. That's a different issue than someone relaying to you that they saw a traffic violation, in my opinion.
Judge, may I respond?
Sure.
Well, it just so happens that I am writing a brief on reasonable suspicion for an OWI as we speak, and I have with me a case that cites Terry, that cites several other cases, but it the legal conclusion judge with the Supreme Court in Navarrete v. California, citation 572 U.S. 393, said that an anonymous tip given to an officer was sufficient, gave officers sufficient reasonable suspicion to conduct a traffic stop. And I think that's analogous to our circumstances, Judge, except in this case, we have a concrete source of those tips. Of there's a possible, excuse me, there is a possible drunk driver in this type of car, this make, this model, Judge. So I think that more than meets reasonable suspicion under the Supreme Court's standard of reasonableness.
So in other words, it's beyond I agree that the lane changes, improper lane use, or I guess would be the civil infraction involved, but you're relying on that plus the not so anonymous tip regarding report of intoxication.
Your Honor, it should be noted from that girl who saw him with another female apartment complex.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time hearing you. You're breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry. I said it should be noted that the 911 call came from an ex-girlfriend of Mr. White's, and at least 3 times in the phone call, she mentioned the fact that he was there visiting another female prior to giving the information about him being a drunk driver and leaving the apartment complex.
Well, regardless of that, though, if the bottom line was, regardless of the introduction, I should say, to the call about the drunk driving, I would think it's that whether or not she thought he was visiting another girl or not I don't think is relevant to the issue of driving. Now, the question I have, though, on okay, let's say the stop is legal. It's not the best airtight case I've seen. Nevertheless, it's legal. The question I have then is regarding the warrant. This was a blood draw warrant. Is that correct?
That's
Yes,
correct.
Your Honor.
And the affidavit said June of 2020, June 15th or something. In reality, it was August 15th. Is that a correct statement?
That was Officer Edge's testimony, Judge.
Yes. So, other than that date, are there other, other than an error on the date? This is a blood draw on the scene, right? Or shortly thereafter, correct?
Yes, Your Honor, it was on the scene.
Okay.
Your Honor,
So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry,
Okay.
go ahead.
the problem is that according to the warrant, it was issued 7 months before it was requested. And that's defective, and that's more than just a typo.
Well, if it was August 15th, it was requested the day, then the 7 months would be, it was a wrong date was the only reason it was, shall we say, issued, then the question is, does the wrong date nullify the entire warrant? So in other words, if in fact it was issued on August 15th and it was executed on August 15th, is that a sufficient?
The
would that,
problem is it's saying that it was January 20, even though it was requested on August 15th. So it was issued before it was actually requested.
Ms. Curry, what
And-
was it?
And the warrant issue.
So this, okay, any response from your, Mr. Curry?
No, Judge, other than I would rest on at least what I hope is the legal standard, that the error is harmless. I don't think, as I think Detective Long said, it was just a typo. So I don't think that would impute, certainly no bad faith on the officer's part, and certainly an inconsequential error for these purposes, Judge. So that'd be my only response.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, at this point, deny the motion. I don't have my volumes of MCL and Supreme Court reports and so forth in front of me. So at this point, I'm going to deny the motion. And if you'd like to proceed at this point with preliminary examination, you at least, Ms. Woodson, have preserved any, let's say, assuming it's bound over and so forth, you've preserved enough on a great deal on the record, actually. Very well put, but at least you're covering yourself for that. So you want to proceed right now with the rest of the exam?
Would the court grant me a stay to appeal the decision regarding the warrant? If not, I need to talk with Mr. White momentarily.
Okay, I guess I have no problem, like an interlocutory type.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have no problem. I don't prosecute. Mr. Curry, do you have a problem with that?
No, Judge, and is Ms. Woodson, where will you be planning on? I guess obviously probably with the circuit court. I would, would you file with the circuit court? Would you provide me with a copy as well? I'd like to read it and I would like to respond.
Of course, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Woodson.
Thank you.
Alex, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Detective.
The search warrant was dated for August 15, 2020, was submitted to the lab on August 25th with a result of August 31st, 2020. That helps you out at all.
It does.
Yeah, consulate. Okay.
It was just a improper date on the investigative report. And then the complaint warrant itself.
Okay, I understand, Ms. Woodson, where you're coming from. Exactly. I'm not, in my years as a judge, I've occasionally been reversed. Of course, the appellate court was wrong, but I nevertheless went along with it. So, do we have a date? Well, we'll wait and see what happens, okay? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Captain Long, Officer Edge, Mr. White, Ms. Woodson.
Hey,
Thank you.
Judge, if I may, Detective, can you give me a call? You have
Sure.
my number still? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yep. Okay. Talk to me a second.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, Ms. Woodson.
You too.